parents sent me a $340,000 medical bill for keeping me alive through childhood asthma when I became a nurse, while paying for my brother's third failed business. Then I discovered what they'd really been hiding. So my parents actually calculated 23 years of asthma medication, doctor visits, and hospitalizations, and demanded I reimburse them $340,000 when I got my nursing license. Meanwhile, they'd just written my brother his third $80,000 check for another doomed business venture. What I discovered about why they really needed that money made me sick to my stomach. I'm Claire, 29, female, and this happened 18 months ago, but I'm still uncovering layers of deception that make my blood boil. My family operated on a simple principle. My brother Tyler, 32, was an entrepreneur with vision. I was an expensive medical liability who owed them for keeping me breathing. I was diagnosed with asthma at age 3. Severe, exercise-induced, with seasonal triggers that made spring and fall absolute hell. I remember my childhood in terms of nebulizer treatments, inhalers I had to keep in every room, emergency room visits at 2 a.m. when I couldn't breathe. My parents treated my asthma like a personal financial attack against them. Every inhaler refill, every specialist appointment, every ER copay was met with sighs and comments about how expensive I was. Mom kept a running commentary about every charge. I was 7 years old being made to feel guilty for having lungs that didn't work properly. Meanwhile, Tyler got everything. Baseball equipment, $400 bats, and $150 gloves because he was going pro someday. Didn't matter that he warmed the bench most of high school. Summer baseball camps, $2,000 per session. Private coaching, $75 per hour. When he needed a car at 16, Dad bought him a used truck for $8,000. When I turned 16, they gave me $500 toward a car and told me to save up the rest. Took me until I was 19, working at CVS Pharmacy, to buy a beat-up Honda Civic with 160,000 miles. Tyler went to college for business. Barely graduated after 6 years and 3 major changes, but Mom and Dad funded all of it. $35,000 per year at a mediocre private college where he mostly partied. I went to community college for 2 years while working full-time, then transferred to a state nursing program. Paid every cent myself through work and loans. Graduated with $38,000 in debt and my RN license. My parents attended Tyler's graduation with a banner and threw him a party at a country club. $3,000, open bar, 80 guests. Gave him $10,000 as a graduation gift to start his entrepreneurial journey. My nursing school graduation, they showed up 20 minutes late, stayed for the ceremony, left before the reception. No party. No gift. Tyler's first business was a premium coffee subscription service. Needed $45,000 to start. My parents gave him $40,000 from their savings and co-signed a $5,000 business loan. The business lasted 7 months. Tyler spent $15,000 on a fancy website and branding, $8,000 on inventory that he never properly stored. Got maybe 30 subscribers total. When it folded, my parents absorbed the loss. Said Tyler was learning valuable lessons about business. I was working night shifts at the hospital, 12-hour stretches, dealing with codes and traumas and patients dying, coming home exhausted with my feet aching and my back screaming. Nobody said I was learning valuable lessons. Nobody gave me $40,000 to chase my dreams. Tyler's second business was artisanal hot sauce. Needed $35,000. My parents gave him $30,000 and borrowed $5,000 from my aunt. That one lasted 11 months. Turns out the artisanal hot sauce market is saturated, and Tyler's recipes weren't particularly good. Lost everything. Again, my parents absorbed it. During this time, I was picking up extra shifts to pay down my student loans. Working 50 to 60 hours some weeks. I'd started specializing in ICU nursing, one of the most demanding fields. Got promoted to charge nurse after 3 years. My salary went from $58,000 to $71,000. That's when my parents called a family meeting. I showed up at their house on a Sunday afternoon. Tyler was already there, looking smug in his entrepreneur casual wear, expensive jeans, untucked button-up, those leather sneakers that cost $200. Mom and Dad were at the kitchen table with a file box full of papers. "Claire, now that you're making good money, we need to discuss something important," Dad started. Mom opened the file box and started pulling out folders. Medical records. Pharmacy receipts. Hospital bills. Insurance statements. Everything going back to my asthma diagnosis at age 3. "We've been tracking your medical expenses for years," she said. She slid a spreadsheet across the table. It was 23 pages long. Line by line, month by month, year by year. The total at the end was $340,847. I stared at the number, not quite processing. "We paid for all of this," Dad said. "We're not saying you need to pay it all back. But now that you're financially stable with a good career, we think it's fair that you contribute to settling this debt." "Debt?" My voice came out strange. "We're proposing a repayment plan," Mom said quickly. "Maybe $1,500 per month for the next several years." I looked at Tyler, who was examining his phone. "Does Tyler have one of these spreadsheets?" "Tyler doesn't have chronic health issues," Dad said. "His situation is different. Tyler's had $75,000 of your money for 2 failed businesses in 3 years. That's investment in his future," Mom said. "This is repayment for your past." The logic was insane. Tyler's failures were investments. My medical condition as a child was a debt. "You want me to pay you $1,500 a month for having asthma as a kid?" "For the financial burden we carried because of your health issues," Dad corrected. "While you give Tyler more money for another business that'll fail?" Tyler looked up. "That's not fair. I'm building something. You've built 2 bankruptcies." Mom jumped in. "This isn't about Tyler. Actually, we need to tell you something else. Tyler has a new business opportunity. Cryptocurrency consulting. He needs $80,000 to get certified and set up his practice. We're helping him, but we're short about $30,000. If you started your repayment plan now, we could redirect that to help your brother." There it was. The real reason for this meeting. I stood up. "I'm not giving you a single cent." I left. The calls started immediately. Long voicemails about ingratitude and selfishness. Text messages with individual line items from the spreadsheet. I blocked their numbers after 2 days of harassment. Then something started nagging at me. The numbers felt wrong. I'm a nurse. I know healthcare costs. Even with insurance, $340,000 over 23 years was high but possible. But some of the individual claims seemed inflated. I requested my medical records. All of them, going back to childhood. Took 3 weeks to get everything from various providers. I spent a weekend going through everything with my fiancé David, who's an accountant. We compared their spreadsheet to actual billing records, insurance explanations of benefits, everything we could verify. The numbers didn't match. They'd inflated almost everything. A $30 copay became $75 in their records. A $200 deductible became $500. They'd included my regular pediatrician visits as asthma-related expenses, even though those were just annual checkups required for all kids. They'd counted my mom taking time off work to take me to appointments and assigned it dollar values, $150 per visit for her lost wages even though she had paid sick time. The real total for my asthma-related out-of-pocket expenses over 23 years was about $87,000. Still significant, but nowhere near $340,000. They'd fabricated $253,000 in fake medical debt. But the real bombshell came when David did some digging into my parents' financial situation. He's good at finding public records. Turns out my parents had taken out a home equity line of credit 3 years ago. $120,000, allegedly for home improvements. Except they hadn't improved anything on the house. All of it had gone to Tyler's businesses. Every cent. They'd also taken early withdrawals from Dad's 401k, about $60,000 over the past 5 years. Penalty fees, taxes, the whole disaster. That money also went to Tyler's ventures. They'd borrowed $30,000 from my aunt, who I called to confirm. She told me she'd been asking for repayment for 2 years and they kept saying they didn't have it. But she also told me something else. My parents had been telling her they needed the money for my medical expenses. That I had ongoing health issues and they were covering my treatments. I haven't had an asthma attack in 6 years. I haven't needed emergency treatment since I was in college. My current medication costs me $40 per month with insurance, which I pay myself. They'd been using my childhood asthma as a cover story to borrow money from relatives, then giving it all to Tyler. I compiled everything. The medical records showing their inflated numbers. The property records showing the home equity loan. The 401k withdrawal records. My aunt's statement about the loan and the lie. Then I sent it to every family member in one email. My grandparents, all my aunts and uncles, my cousins who were old enough to understand. Subject line was the real family finances. The email went out at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. By noon, my phone was exploding with calls from relatives. By 3 p.m., my parents' phone was apparently ringing non-stop. My Uncle James, who's a lawyer, called me directly. "Claire, this is fraud. They've been using false pretenses to obtain money from family members. That's actionable." My grandmother called. She was crying. "I gave them $10,000 last year. They said it was for your medical expenses. Said you needed a surgery. I hadn't had surgery. I'd been perfectly healthy. 12 family members had given my parents money over the past 5 years, totaling about $80,000, all under the pretense of my medical needs. All of it had gone to Tyler." The family imploded. My aunt demanded her $30,000 back immediately. My Uncle James sent my parents a formal letter outlining the fraud and giving them 30 days to provide a repayment plan to all family members they'd deceived. They didn't have anything close to $80,000. The house was underwater after the equity loan. Dad's 401k was depleted. They had maybe $3,000 in checking. Then someone, I still don't know who, reported them to the IRS. Turns out you can't write off business loans to your son as personal losses without proper documentation, and they'd been doing creative things on their taxes for years to make it work. The IRS audit was brutal. 5 years of returns reviewed. They owed back taxes plus penalties, around $47,000. Within 6 months, everything collapsed. My parents declared bankruptcy. Lost the house. Moved into a small rental. Dad's credit was destroyed. Mom had to get a second job. Tyler's cryptocurrency consulting business never launched because he didn't get the funding. He couldn't find a real job because he'd spent 10 years calling himself an entrepreneur with nothing to show for it. Last I heard, he was doing DoorDash delivery and living in my parents' second bedroom. The family cut them off completely. Nobody talks to them. Nobody invites them to holidays. Meanwhile, David and I got married last spring. Small ceremony, 40 guests, the family members who actually supported me. My Uncle James walked me down the aisle. My grandmother sat in the front row crying happy tears. We bought a house 6 months later. I made charge nurse manager, salary jumped to $89,000. My parents weren't invited. They found out through Facebook posts from other relatives. Mom sent a long message about how she hoped I'd find it in my heart to forgive them someday. About how they'd lost everything and were truly sorry. I read it once. Didn't respond. Some debts can't be repaid. Some lies can't be unspoken. They built their entire family around treating me as the cost and Tyler as the investment, and they got exactly the return they invested in.